My name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 300 of Legally Clueless. This is a milestone. Thank you so much for being part of the family. If you are an OG member, you've been here for the 300 episode ride. I really appreciate you. And if you are a newbie, welcome to the family. We have 3 podcast shows on Legally Clueless. We have this one that goes out on Mondays. On Wednesdays, we have the midweek tease, and on Fridays, we have Ask a Therapist. So make sure you subscribe to our podcast on whatever streaming app you are listening to this on. And this is what's coming up a little later in this episode.
Come 2007, I joined high school. 3 weeks in, I start having joint pain, swelling, redness. You know high school. You're taken to the nurse says you're homesick. I was being treated by general doctors and student doctors. They would really not scratch beneath the surface. They would just take things at face value. I would have paralysis from my neck downwards, sometimes on one side, usually the left, sometimes one limb, so the leg or the hand. If you slap me by mistake, I can go stiff, I can collapse, all these things. So in total, I have 10 chronic illnesses and 8 of them are autoimmune diseases. I've always wanted maybe marriage, companionship, children, but that really may not be in the cards for me because I come with a lot.
That is Wendy's really powerful story, so do stick around for that. But before we get there, speaking of powerful things, Legally Clueless has teamed up with UN Women, and we are off to Mozambique and to Johannesburg in episode 1 of a series of shows that we're doing over on our YouTube channel. And this series of shows spotlights African women who are doing the absolute most when it comes to ending gender-based violence in their respective countries across the continent. And in episode 1, we got to meet Josina Machel.
October 2015, I was in a car with my then partner, and we disagreed on a particular issue, and all of a sudden he stops the car and he starts beating me. He beat me so severely that I lost my right eye right there and then. Anyone would think that being the daughter of Samara Machel, of Graça Machel, being the stepdaughter of Nelson Mandela, I would have had a smooth journey into reporting, into getting the case into the criminal justice system. Then what happens to the millions of women in this country, in this continent, that actually don't have that ability? What happened to me is the reality of millions of women in this continent and in the world.
This was very iconic to me. One, because I am a survivor, and a couple of years ago, I think just when we were getting into COVID, right, I stumbled on this TED Talk by a woman who I wasn't familiar with, but I love TED Talks, and I stayed to listen to her story. And she was talking about her experience losing her right eye. While she was giving this talk, she also mentioned that she was the daughter of Samara Machel, which I found to be very interesting because as a Pan-African, a lot of what inspires my thoughts around our continent has been the ideologies and the story of Samara Machel. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is 2 in 1 because I'm watching her talk, and as a survivor, I'm feeling less alone, I'm feeling seen, I'm feeling inspired. So to be able to get her on Legally Clueless is such a highlight for me. So make sure you go and check out her full story on our YouTube channel. And not only that, we took her to what I think is one of the region's best shelters. And it's right here in Kenya. It's the Kenya Wellness Center for Women and Children. And it's, I was there 2 years ago, went back. It's a one-stop shop for survivors. It's a shelter. You can get access to medical assistance, legal assistance. They are finalizing on a forensic lab. Like, dude, it made me so proud because these are things I've always wanted for survivors and really for our country. But I don't want to give everything away. Head over to our YouTube channel, watch the episode, share Josina's story, It'll definitely inspire so many other, not only survivors, but people who want to just end the monster that is gender-based violence. And once again, very thankful to UN Women for partnering with us on this. This episode is going to be a bit long, so we need to jump into 100 African stories like yesterday. And in this episode, we're listening to Wendy's story. She has 10 chronic illnesses. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
Hello, Wendy Yekono here. I was born in Eastlands, Nairobi, Umoja to be specific, the firstborn of our family. And yeah, life was good. As a youngster, life was just good. I was a tomboy, a serious tomboy, juu ya miti, riding bicycles, all the boyish things you can imagine. That was me. I'm a great football fan as well. So any tomboyish thing you can think, that was me. We came up in Umoja till 2015. Then we moved to Donholm, where we currently stay. I went to primary school at BD Primary School, standard 2 to 8. I passed my exams very well. Then I got called to Pangani Girls, Nairobi. Pangoe. So I went to Pangani Girls from 1 to Form 4. After that, I did my CPAs at Strathmore University. Then I did a Bachelor of Commerce exempt at KCA University. So I am a certified public accountant of Kenya. So growing up, my health was always fine. I was not a sickly child. Nothing was problematic per se, just the usual cuts and bruises from playing. But around 2006, I started having issues, what we'd call breathing issues. And that is when I was taken to Gertrude's Hospital and they discovered that I have asthma. That was the first diagnosis I ever got. But at the time, it wasn't too bad. Come 2007, I joined high school. 3 weeks in, I start having joint pain, swelling, redness. You know high school. You're taken to the nurse. The nurse says you're homesick. You just came from a day school the other day. So you're not really sick. You just want to go home. So it took a while for them to call my parents, but eventually my dad was called to school, and that is when my journey started. I started with going to Aga Khan Hospital because it was the closest to school. And that first year mainly was just dealing with swelling and inflammation. I was being treated by general doctors and student doctors. So they would really not scratch beneath the surface. They would just take things at face value. Yes, there's swelling. Yes, there's redness. Yes, the joints are hot. That's it. Anti-inflammatories like Olfen, and you're sent on your way. So 2008, I start having back issues, severe back pain, severe stiffness in my back. I would have paralysis from my neck downwards, sometimes on one side, usually the left, sometimes one limb, so the leg or the hand. That is when I was referred to a neurologist who did an MRI and a lumbar puncture. Those tests reveal that I have what we call demyelinating spinal myelopathy. What that means is biology. When you have your nerves and your spine, there's a covering, a layer called myelin sheath. It's supposed to protect the nerves and the spine. My body does not have that. My body is eating my myelin sheath. Therefore, my spine and my nerves are left exposed. So anything can trigger what we call stiff person syndrome. Whether it's the cold, it can be touch. If you slap me by mistake, I can go stiff, I can collapse, all these things. So once they discovered I have demyelinating spinal myelopathy, it was easy for them to make the stiff person syndrome diagnosis. But for that, we had to send multiple tests to the US, to the UK, Germany, Israel. You think it, we sent a test there. They discovered I have stiff person syndrome. I was started on treatment for that. Very high dose, and it's what we've maintained to date. Now, 2009, things are not improving. Yes, stiff person syndrome is under control, but there's something wrong. There's something really wrong. Now my muscles are weak. I can't walk. I can't participate in school. I'm using crutches, all these things. So my neurologist said, you know what, you need to see a rheumatologist. And a rheumatologist was coming to Aga Khan. When I saw the rheumatologist, he sent me for a battery of tests. So a rheumatologist deals with musculoskeletal conditions. So anything that has the muscles, the bones, the joints. That is a rheumatologist. A neurologist deals with brain issues and nerve issues. So when I was sent to the rheumatologist, he sent me for blood work and other tests just to see why my muscles are not functioning, why my joints are so swollen, and why my nerves are hyperactive. And in November of 2009, I got the diagnosis of systemic lupus erythematosus, SLE. So that is my main condition. Once we started treating SLE, it was now easier for us to make subsequent diagnoses and therefore manage the conditions as a whole. So in total, I have 10 chronic illnesses and 8 of them are autoimmune diseases. What is an autoimmune disease, you ask? Now, each one of us has an immune system. Your immune system protects your body against viruses, bacteria, and these things that make you sick. So when your immune system gets weak, that's when you get a cold because your immune system was a bit weak. In my case, my immune system does not protect me. It does not recognize that role. What it does is attack me. So instead of protecting me, my immune system attacks me. So it attacks any part of the body. It attacks the brain, the heart, the lungs, the joints, the kidneys, any organ you can think of, lupus has attacked. That's the thing with lupus. It's systemic, so it attacks every organ in the body. You have people who have particular organs affected, like the kidneys. That's lupus nephritis. But for me, systemic lupus has affected every organ in my body. What happens with the autoimmune disease diagnosis is once they make a diagnosis of one, it's easier to make subsequent diagnoses because we have what you call overlap syndrome. Autoimmune diseases come in 1, 2, 3, 4. They don't come alone. You rarely find someone who has one autoimmune disease. So, for example, with lupus, you'll find that most people also have rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, and fibromyalgia. Those go together. So, for me, my combination is systemic lupus erythematosus, stiff person syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, polymyositis, chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, demyelination of the spine, that's demyelinating spinal myelopathy. There's always one that I forget, mixed connective tissue disease. High school coping. I had this one friend. Her name is Stephanie. We went to primary school together, so I knew her from there. She joined our school in standard 6, so we had 3 years of knowing each other. We were called to the same school, we were called to the same class, but different houses. So there was that comfort in knowing, I know someone from primary school, I'll not be alone. So we were in the same class. When my issues started, she was the person who supported me the most. But in Form 1, it was not too bad. I was not missing school as much. I could still wash my clothes. I could still do everything for myself. Form 2 was not too bad as well, but things went south in Form 3. Form 3 was really bad. That is when I started using crutches. That is when my muscles lost strength. That is when stiff person syndrome really, really came to the fore. So what Stephanie did is she went to our principal and she explained to her, Wendy and I went to the same school together. We're in the same class. She actually sits right behind me. Now, I think she should move houses and come to the house that I am in and come to the room that I am in. So she was on the ground floor, I was on the first floor. And because the principal had known my story, had seen my dad in and out of school picking me up, she said, okay. So I went to their room. What they then did was, as a room, they came together and decided to help me. So there was a person who would wash my shirts, another my skirts, another my socks, another this. Stephanie was actually my first caregiver because she would make sure that I eat, she'd make sure I take my medication, she'd make sure I have hot water to shower. When I go to hospital and I come back, she's the one who'd try to help me to catch up in class. What did I miss? What is new? All those things. So were it not for her, I would not have made it in high school. There was no way. At some point, I wanted to transfer schools because I was being a burden on this girl. She was just here to study. She was not here to be a caregiver. But she took it on in a way that no one should ever have to. She took care of me. And by doing that, my close circle of friends sort of emulated her lead. So you had another friend called Chuku, another one called Karaoke, another one called Ngomba. So I had like a solid circle of friends who would help me. Then I had my classmates who would now come through when I fall, when I can't walk, they would carry me across the flyover to the other side, all those things. High school for me, I made it through because of Stephanie. That is the only way to put it. She sacrificed her life. She sacrificed her her mental health. She sacrificed time she should have spent studying to help me recover, to help me understand concepts, to help me with my depression, to help me with the symptoms I was now experiencing, the side effects from medication. She took everything on, and I can never be grateful enough. There are just no words to thank her. So the emotional toll these illnesses took on me started right in 2008. At the time, I didn't know what it was. But when I joined high school, I was chosen to be a ranger. I was a girl guide, a brownie, so being a ranger was a big, big deal. I joined Rangers in 2007. That year, I enjoyed that club. I loved it. Anything we would do, my God, count me in. We would taunt each other with the first aiders. There were songs that we'd taunt each other with first aiders. When we were recruiting new people, my God, we'd make them do some rubbish, walk on some tissue without breaking it. Good times. Those were really good times. I loved that club. But mid 2008, I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't go for meetings. I didn't want to wear my uniform. I just didn't feel it. So I didn't know what it was. It was just like, I would make excuses. That is not normal at all. So I had seen my neurologist and he had sent me for an MRI of the brain to see what's happening. But you see, so many things were going on health-wise. It was just like that MRI can wait. Then August, I was just like, Dad, this headache, it's too much. I can't see out of this eye. I can't do this. So we did the MRI and I took the results to my doctor. And as he was looking at the MRI, he was looking at it, looking at me, looking at it again, and I'm like, what, Daktari, what's wrong? Wendy, you're having an active stroke as we speak. I'm like, what? Yes, you have clots in your brain. I have clots in the middle of my brain. So I was admitted immediately, started on blood thinners, and then we discussed the way forward. Ideally, they wanted to do a surgery to get the clots out. But the location of the clots is so tricky that if something were to go wrong during surgery, it would affect my personality and my motor skills. And if there's one thing I'm not letting go of, it's my personality. I was like, is the surgery absolutely necessary? The doctor said no. What is the other option? Blood thinners. And I said, that's what we'll do. So I was put on blood thinners. Now, everyone is different and how they tolerate medication is different. The only blood thinner I tolerate well is called warfarin. So I have been on warfarin since August 23rd, 2011. What that has meant is, initially I was supposed to be on warfarin for 9 months, and then 12 months, and then 15 months, and we realized my clots are not shrinking. If anything, my clots are getting bigger. So now the decision was made that I would be on warfarin for the rest of my life. Blood thinners. Warfarin, one, that means I have to do what we call an INR. That is a test that just checks the level of clotting in my blood, how it's clotting. So my ideal range is between 2 and 3. If it's below 2, I'm at an increased risk of clotting. If it's above 3, I'm at an increased risk of bleeding. So it's supposed to be between 2 and 3. That test ideally should be done monthly. But if the numbers are off, that's below 2 or above 3, you repeat that test every 72 hours until it stabilizes. Sometimes this goes on for months. You're just in hospital every 3 days checking what the levels are. That is one. Two, warfarin does not go well with vitamin K. Warfarin interferes with the working of vitamin K. So that meant that I was told to stop anything vitamin K, skooma, cabbage, spinach, beans, cornflakes. I stopped all those things. We thought eventually I would be able to reintroduce them. So we tried twice, thrice, and it was disastrous. So I have not had vitamin K since 2011. My meals are just carbs and meat, carbs and meat. So white meat, red meat, ugali na kuku, chapo na nyama. That's all I eat. It's not the best because it interferes even with my digestion. It causes constipation, but it is what it is. I just supplement with fruits. The other thing about that is it led to the diagnosis of a condition called antiphospholipid syndrome. Antiphospholipid syndrome is also an autoimmune disease. The antibodies attack the normal proteins in the blood, therefore causing clotting in the arteries and in the veins. So for me, what it has done is it has caused a stroke. It has caused mini strokes, what we call transient ischemic attacks. I've had mini heart attacks. I've had pulmonary embolisms, and I have deep vein thrombosis. However, it also causes miscarriages and stillbirths. What happened when I had the stroke was, of course, I was admitted for 5 days. I let my lecturers know that this has happened. I have a stroke and I need to do some rehabilitation, physiotherapy to try, and some damage was done to my left hand, some movement. I could not walk properly, so I had to take a break. But my lecturers were God sent. They were honestly the best people I have ever met. When you're sick, you really need to understand your conditions so that you can be able to put it across. Sometimes people don't help or don't empathize because they just don't understand. They don't know. It's not their fault. But because I had quite a good understanding of APS at the time, I just sat them down and explained, I have this condition, it caused a stroke. Not only that, I also have this other condition and this one and this one. So right now, I really need to take a break from school and try to manage this. So everything was fine. They would send me notes. They would send me assignments. I took, I think, 2 weeks off because I was also eager to go back to school. You know, you want to be a social being. You want to be where people are. You feel like you're missing out. But after 2 weeks, I was cleared enough to just go to school. I would still keep up with physiotherapy and hydrotherapy, medication, all the things. But I went back to school. My classmates were really understanding. The ones that I talked to and explained to were actually very helpful. They would watch me like hawks. If I looked like I was tipping to one side, they were there. The number of times they've come to my aid, we've called my dad to school to help me. It took an effect because at the end of the semester, I passed only 1 out of 3 papers. But we expected that because of the impact the stroke had on my brain. I just wanted to challenge myself to see, can I remember? Can I do this? So when I passed only 1 paper, I was actually on the verge of giving up because why? Why should I keep doing this if my brain won't retain the information? So my father told me, just do another semester. Do another semester and let's see how it goes. So I did 3 units the next semester plus the 2 that I failed, and I passed all 5. So I was like, you know what? I got the brains. I got the brains to do this. And that's how I kept on. As an adult, I wouldn't say I've experienced stigma just because I understand my condition and I explain it in a way that you understand. And if you have questions, I'm open to answering them. There was no misunderstanding. There are those who didn't understand and really didn't care, and that's okay. But for the people who were with me and who dealt with me on a daily basis, there was no stigma. So let's talk about the financial aspect of this. You wonder how all this is possible. Who pays for all this? That's my parents. My parents have paid millions and millions of shillings towards my healthcare. I have worked for a span of 5 years, but the salary that I was getting was not enough to sustain the day-to-day, transport, lunch, as well as buy my own medication. My medication goes from 40,000 upwards per month. I have specialist appointments, and you've had all these conditions I have. I see multiple specialists. So I see 9 specialists. There's blood work to be done. There's imaging like MRIs and X-rays. You have the colonoscopies, endoscopies, MRIs, physiotherapy, hydrotherapy, all those things. And apart from that, there's the diet. There are things that I need to be comfortable at home: orthopedic mattress, orthopedic shoes, massages, all these things my parents cater for. It's a blessing, nothing short of a blessing, that God has been able to sustain them and to provide them with the finances to take care of this. But it's also very demoralizing because, this is technically money that we are throwing away. I've always said, if this was a situation where you're told bring 50 million and you'll get better, you'll stop being sick altogether, that money would have been found. But you see, this is money just going down the drain. It's tests, it's drugs, it's war. All these things don't come back. And unfortunately, my conditions are degenerative. So I'm only getting worse as I get older. So that really does a number on me, as well as the fact that my parents are aging. They have their own old age issues. I have brothers as well, so I'm not the only child. I'm not the only concern financially. There's everything else around life, but God is good. God has been good to us. He has provided the finances. And yeah, even now, as I'm jobless, they continue to sustain everything. So I worked for 5 years. When I got there, I was very honest with them. During the interview, I explained, listen, I have this condition and this condition. That means that there are days I will miss work. There are days I need for appointments, and there are just days I just can't come in because the body is doing what it does. So initially, I don't think they fully understand or grasp the gravity of it. They just thought, okay, well, a day here, a day there. So 2018, we go okay. I have an admission in between. That was fine. 2019, everything was actually going okay, I would say, because as I said, I was also very straightforward. I was also very forthcoming. I would just say the truth. I'm dealing with fatigue, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. Now, on a day-to-day, you'd find that I'd have maybe to forgo lunch for a nap because of how tired I am. So instead of eating, I would have a nap and then now power through the afternoon. Fatigue with chronic illness is something I cannot even put words to. It is the kind of heaviness you can't even lift your head. There are days that are so bad I cannot do anything at all. I'm completely immobilized. So on what I would call good days, I would actually work quite well. But the problem was I'd have to get to work around 7:30. That means I would start waking up at 3 because of stiffness. I'm not the kind of person who my alarm goes off and I'm out of bed. That's not how it goes. So my alarm goes off at around 3. That's when I start stretching my legs. I try to turn in bed. Just to measure the degree of stiffness. That takes maybe an hour for my body to sort of open up and to start feeling like a normal human being. 4 to 4:30, my mom would come in and try to just massage my back to get rid of those knots and that stiffness that was just deep. So she massages me. 5 o'clock, maybe I go shower, I get ready. I'm at work by 7:30. But you see, I'm already tired from 3 a.m. So by 7:30, I've been up for 4.5 hours. I'm already tired. But I go through the day. I'm actually quite good at powering through. I get a nap at lunchtime. I finish my day at 4:45. I go home. And the cycle goes on and on. But one thing that really worked to my advantage was because of how honest I was. When COVID-19 came around, the moment we saw breaking news, my boss was at my desk. My boss and his boss. They said, we've just seen that COVID-19 has arrived in Kenya. You need to go. You need to go. You said you're immunocompromised, right? Yeah, go. Don't worry about the laptop and what. You just go. We'll send everything once you're gone, because they understood what COVID-19 meant for me. Now, that honesty, now that I look back, was sometimes used against me. There are opportunities that were not given to me because of that. There are conversations that were not had because of that. For example, there's an opportunity for a promotion. No one asks me if, would you like this job? Do you feel like you're qualified for this job? They just say, no, Wendy hawezi, Wendy ni mgonjwa. So my honesty worked for me and also worked against me. But you see, the thing with being sick, you cannot lie about it, because anything can happen at any time. Right here, we are sat, the two of us. If I didn't tell you that I was sick and something happened, where do you start when I'm on the floor, stiff and cannot talk? What do you do? So for me, it was never a question of should I say. It was a question of I must say. And I had to have someone that I trust so deeply that they know this is my medical history. Here is my file number at Aga Khan. These are the doctors that I'm under. These are the drugs that I'm taking. If anything should happen, first things first, you take me to Aga Khan. Second thing, you call my father. And then from there, everything will move on. So that honesty, it was used against me, but I wouldn't change it for anything. It also taught me that discrimination and stigmatization is real, in as much as people seem to understand your situation or understand your condition. When they want to use it against you, they will use it against you properly, and they will use it against you with information you have supplied. So you cannot even say ati hapana ikuwa hivyo, but the information you gave was not meant to be used in that manner, but it's been spun around in such a way that, so that was my first real encounter with stigma. So after 5 years, there was a redundancy, and I was one of the people who was let go. So that is how I was out of a job. After COVID-19 hit, what happened was I was sent home. For 3 months, I didn't have a computer, but they still paid my salary, which was good. Then I got a computer. I started working from home in June of 2020. In November of 2020, people went back to the office, but I was told because of your condition, it's okay, you can stay home. So 2020, I worked from home. 2021, I worked from home. Then in 2022, around, I think February, is when I was told, now you need to come back to the office, which was fine by me. So I worked from home during COVID. Then 2022, I go back to the office. I was let go in November of 2022. So it was redundancy, and it was packaged as the company is going in a different direction, all that, the usual lingo. But I don't think that's the case. Because if we are strictly looking at productivity and work ethic and all these things, everyone was surprised that I was leaving. So it has something to do with my illness. I know that for a fact. And so I accepted it. And it was time. It really was time, because I had been feeling the toxicity. When people don't want you somewhere, you feel the energy. People start treating you different. You're not called into key meetings, you're not given this, you're not given that. So it was actually a relief. I said, you know what, it's all right. Because I had also said I had been on contract for the 5 years. I had also told them, I think I've been on contract long enough. It's now time for me to be made a permanent employee. If you don't have any plans to do that, please let me know. So when the redundancy came around, it was okay, bingo. And that is how I was let go. So after that, what happened was I needed a break. I needed to breathe. So initially, I was just going to take maybe 3 months to just catch my breath, just be and just live a little bit. Then I started looking for jobs, and it was clear jobs are not really forthcoming. The economy being what it is, my conditions being what they are, that combination is really not the best. So I started my own business, which did well for a few months. Then there's a bit of a plateau. So we paused. Then I got on social media. I realized that people are making money off of social media. And I thought to myself, if I can share my story, if I can create awareness and at the same time encourage someone who's going through the same situation, why not? So I'm trying to penetrate this space. I want to do something in terms of creating awareness, encouraging people. So that's the current space I'm at. But I've been unemployed since November 2022. So when it comes to romantic relationships, as with anything else, life is good. We love each other and all that. I've had two significant relationships in my life, quite long. One was, I think, 8 years long. Another was 6 years long. I don't think in the beginning it was an issue. You see, when you live at your place and I live at home, we only meet on the good days. We only meet when I'm well enough for us to meet. You don't see me when I'm unwell. You're not the one trying to take me to the washroom. You're not the one helping me eat. You're not doing all these things. You only meet me on the good days. So there was this season of, yeah, things are good, things are good. Then one time we were out together and it started raining. And before we got to the car, I got stiff and everything just went to hell. And that was, I'm talking about my last relationship. When he saw that, I think he realized, oh, damn, oh, wow, this is serious. So from there, he started asking more questions. How many appointments do you go for? How much is an appointment? How much is your medication? How much is this? How much is that? So the bigger picture is quite daunting. He realized he couldn't do this and we broke up. And I also made a decision that maybe that's not for me. I've always wanted maybe marriage, companionship, children, but that really may not be in the cards for me because I come with a lot. My medical baggage is a lot. The things I can do and the things that I can't do are just too many. So I don't think it is fair to put that on someone. I feel like it's one thing if you guys are married and then you fall sick within the marriage. You've already taken your vows and now you're ill. You go through it together. But you see, if I come and I lay bare, this is what I go through and these are my bills and this is everything, you run. You run for the hills as fast as you can. I've decided that I may not pursue romantic relationships. I'll try my best to be content with the relationships that I do have, my parents, my siblings, my friends, my nieces, my nephews. And also, I don't want children. I don't want biological children. If I could pass on any of my conditions to my child, that would kill me. I cannot watch my child suffer the way I have suffered in my life. I cannot know that I am the cause for this child suffering. I just can't. So when I was 17, that's when I fully understood the gravity of my conditions. And that is when I made the decision that I will not have biological children. As a chronically ill person, I think first of all, the onus is on me to inform people that I am unwell. You see, when people maybe fall to the ground, it could be a lot of things. It could be a fainting spell, it could be epilepsy, it could be a lot of things. If you, as my friend, as my colleague, do not know my history, there's no way you can help. I'm asthmatic. I teach all my friends, all my family, anyone I'm around for a long time, I teach them when I get an asthma attack, this is what you do. You put me you sit me up, see how I'm breathing. If my airway is not open, if I'm breathing okay, you give me my inhaler, I will take the puff. If I'm not breathing all right, you put me in the recovery position and this is what you do. So if it's an epileptic attack, this is what you need to do. You cannot put a spoon in my mouth. You need to debunk all the theories around what you have and now give them solid information on what to do. For example, when I go stiff, there's really nothing you can do because I feel nothing. If I go stiff from the neck down, that means I feel nothing from the neck down. The only thing you can do is call my dad to come and pick me up. That's the only thing you can do. Even if I'm having an asthmatic attack, you give me my inhaler. If I'm having a fit, you turn me on my side, you put a pillow below my head and you hold me till I come back to. If I, pee my pants or whatever, don't worry about it. We'll deal with it later. So it's my responsibility as a sick person to teach the people around me what to do in order to help me. I tell people these are my drugs. This is pain medication and this is medication for this. I even label them. So if I'm not able to talk and vocalize what I need, because I explained to you before, you give me such a drug for this and such a drug for this, you're able to help me out. So it starts with me. I cannot put the responsibility on you to just know everything. You can't know how to help a person with asthma, stiff person syndrome, lupus. No, you can't know that. So I need to teach the people around me. And that is why I feel it is important for sick people to be empowered and to understand their conditions very, very well. These illnesses are closer than you know. Nobody chooses to be sick. This is not a choice we made. So do not treat it as such. Do not feel as though you are special because you're not sick. It can affect anyone at any time. You know, a friend, a family member, whoever. Give them grace. Give them empathy, give them compassion, and give them understanding. These are just people like you. But men, life has dealt them such difficult cards and they're just trying to navigate. So in whichever way you can help, if you can help financially, do that. If you can help socially, do that. If you can be there for them physically, do that. For the chronically ill people, please, my friends, be empowered. My people, understand your conditions. Ask your doctor questions. Understand the drugs you're taking. Why are you taking them? Why are you feeling like this? What is this about? Because the sooner you understand your condition, the better you can advocate for yourself and others. You cannot speak about something you do not understand. And do not be ashamed. There's a lot of shame that comes with chronic illness. Please do not be ashamed. I want you to cultivate a culture of self-love and self-acceptance. You did not cause this. There's nothing you did, there's nothing your parents did to cause this. It is just shit luck, man. And now that you're here, love yourself. No one will ever love you the way you love you. This illness brings a lot of sadness, a lot of shame, a lot of grief. You need to separate that from who you are. You need to love yourself, stand up for yourself, do things that make you happy. Do not be ashamed.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. There is just so much to unpack. It just feels like it's not something I've thought about for long when it comes to autoimmune diseases. I did have a close friend who battled an autoimmune disease and during COVID didn't make it. And that was terribly sad. So when Wendy was talking about COVID, I was just like, oh my God, that was a hectic time. But even just, let's take you back to high school and like the boarding schools in Kenya, my goodness. Please listen to children when they say they're sick. Like, just stop this nonsense of thinking every child is trying to escape school. With the risks associated to health, it's okay if a kid was fibbing about being sick and you actually paid attention and tried to find that out. That's fine. I'd rather you keep doing that for every child rather than not